A very warm good morning to all of you. Dear students, once again I would like to welcome all of you to a new session of the Civics class. Today we are continuing with the same chapter from Civics, chapter number 3, Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, part 2. Do you remember what we were discussing in the last class? In the last class we were discussing about the basic information regarding the Prime Minister and the appointment of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. Some basic information about these three different points we were discussing in the last class. And today we are going to discuss something further in detail about the Council of Ministers, because different kinds of ministers are there. So especially we are going to discuss about the different kinds of councillors or different category of councillors according to the Indian democratic system. Council of Ministers has mainly divided into three. So before we move to that, according to the Article 75th of the Constitution, the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President. We have already seen this particular point in the previous class. So Prime Minister will be appointed by the President, but he cannot simply appoint a person as the Prime Minister. Certain criteria are there. I have already explained those points in the previous class, because the leader of the majority party in the Lok Sabha will be appointed as the Prime Minister. So certain rules and regulations are there, certain guidelines are there with the President if he wants to elect a person as the Prime Minister. Now we are speaking about ministers. So Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President, and the same article, that is Article 75th of the Constitution, says that there will be other ministers along with the Prime Minister to support the Prime Minister as well as the President. There will be ministers, other ministers. They will be also appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. So the President simply cannot appoint a person as the minister. He has to get the advice of the Prime Minister. So only with the consent of the Prime Minister, President can appoint a minister. So there can be questions in the examinations like, who is appointing the Prime Minister? Of course, the Prime Minister is being appointed by the President. There again, there can be some other questions like, who is appointing the other ministers? Make sure that when you write the answer, it is complete. Like, other ministers are appointed by the President, but he need to get proper advice or consent of the Prime Minister. So the answer will be, the other ministers will be appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. So then and there only that answer will be complete. Okay, so this is the some information about Council of Ministers. According to Article 75th of the Constitution of India, the Prime Minister shall be appointed by the President, and other ministers will be appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. There are three main categories of ministers. First one, cabinet ministers. So the first category of the ministers, they are cabinet ministers, most important members of the Council of Ministers. So they are the most important personalities in the Council of the Ministers of our country or the central government. They are holding important portfolios. Portfolios means different departments like Home Affairs, then transportation, then railway. So those are being known as portfolios, important offices. So cabinet ministers are holding important portfolios or important offices like Home Affairs, Defense, Finance, External Affairs, Railway, etc. I have given a few number of, but a number of different portfolios are there, different offices are there. It will be given only to the Council of Ministers, especially cabinet ministers. Cabinet ministers will be in charge of these different portfolios. He is in charge of a ministry or more than one ministry. He means a cabinet minister. A cabinet minister is in charge of a ministry like defense. For defense, we call it as a ministry, or external affairs, it's a ministry. So a cabinet minister will be in charge of a ministry or more than one ministry. It doesn't mean that a minister will be having only, or a cabinet minister will be having only one ministry. No, it can be one or more than one. It's according to the choice of the prime minister. Prime minister is the person who deciding it. He have a right to attend meetings of the cabinet. So since the cabinet minister is a member of the cabinet, he has the right to attend the meetings of the cabinet. He determines the policy and program of the government. He, along with the other cabinet ministers, they are discussing. Suppose if it is about a particular ministry, he can take the decision. At the same time, in certain cases, he has to get the opinion from the prime minister as well as the other cabinet ministers with regard to the, according to the subject, according to the seriousness of the matter. So, determine the policy and program of the government. So, these are the different features and specialities of the first category of ministers, that is cabinet ministers. Now, the second category of ministers, they are being known as ministers of state. First category is cabinet ministers and second one is ministers of state. They are the second category of the ministry. The different number of ministers are there, or in other words, we have already seen the entire ministers were divided into three categories, and ministers of the second state is the second category of the ministers. May or may not hold an important charge. So it's according to the decision of the prime minister. He can or cannot. So he may or may not hold an independent charge. So it's according to the caliber and capacity of the minister. The prime minister can appoint or give an independent responsibility to the minister of state. The prime minister may or may not consult them. In the case of, suppose, just imagine a cabinet minister or the cabinet ministers together is taking a decision, and in that case the prime minister, it's according to his interest whether he can consult or not. It's according to the decision of the prime minister. So comparatively, the ministers of the states are having less power with the cabinet ministers. Cabinet ministers are the first category and the ministers of the state are the second category. So the prime minister may or may not consult with the ministers of state. They do not participate in the cabinet meetings. Cabinet meetings is kept for the cabinet ministers. So the ministers of the states, they are not a member of the cabinet ministers, and that's why they are not permitted to participate in the cabinet meetings. May be invited to attend meetings. It's according to the interest of the prime minister. The prime minister can invite a minister of the state to attend the cabinet meetings or the other meetings of the ministers. It's according to the decision of the prime minister. If matters concerning their departments, simply the prime minister will not invite a person to attend the cabinet ministers meeting or some other meetings. But if the cabinet ministry is discussing an important matter with related to certain departments which is held by or managed by the ministers of state, in those cases, according to the interest of the prime minister, the minister of the state can take part in the meetings. Now the third category, that is deputy ministers. They are the third category of ministers. First one cabinet ministers, second one ministers of the state, and third one is deputy ministers. They are the assistant of the cabinet ministers. So the cabinet ministers, sometimes cabinet ministers will be getting 2-3 ministries or 2-3 departments. So then it will be very difficult for them to manage all the activities. In such cases, the prime minister will be appointing deputy ministers to assist the cabinet ministers and the council of ministers. So it's the responsibility, it's the duty of the deputy ministers to assist the cabinet ministers and council of ministers as per the instruction of the prime minister. They are being considered as the junior ministers because they will not be having enough experience in managing different important portfolios. So They will be comparatively considered as the junior ministers. They will be working as the assistant ministers or the assistants of the cabinet ministers or council of ministers, and they will be learning number of things from their period of time. They placed under senior ministers, I have already told you. So under cabinet ministers or council of ministers, they will be working. So they will be assigned to certain senior ministers to assist them. No role in the cabinet deliberations. They don't have any role in the cabinet meetings or cabinet discussions or any other official matters which is dealing with the prime minister and the cabinet ministers. Deputy ministers are not having any role in those matters. So dear students, these are the different category of ministers. First one, cabinet ministers. Second one, ministers of the state. And third one, deputy ministers. These different categories are having their own different responsibilities and duties, and on this basis the entire administrative structure of the central government is functioning. So I hope you have got a clear idea about the different category of ministers. So with this we are winding up today's class. In the next class we will be discussing about some general facts related to the Council of Ministers. We will meet again in the next class. Till then, I would like to sign off. Thank you.